During last year's NFL offseason, 9 total trades were completed by late August, and an additional whopping 19 trades were made in season for the 2024 NFL season, totaling 28 total trades in 2024 made by NFL teams. So today we're going to go over 3 potential trade away candidates for the Green Bay Packers here in this 2025 offseason and then potentially into the season. Because a trade definitely could happen for the Green Bay Packers, of course, if the price is right. Firstly, wanted to say welcome into the channel to all returning viewers and new viewers. And if you happen to be a new viewer and want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason, I'd highly suggest going down and hitting that subscribe button. We are just under a month away from the start of training camp for the Green Bay Packers. And if you don't want to miss anything from training camp, from news, highlights, takeaways from every single day of practice, definitely go click subscribe because there'll be plenty of videos during training camp and even before training camp here on this channel. All right, so now back to the topic of today's video. 3 potential trade away candidates for the Green Bay Packers. And all 3 of these players, in my opinion, there is a chance that they could be dealt for draft capital for the Green Bay Packers. Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers have traded away players before, even in season, such as Rasul Douglas and even last year with Preston Smith. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that a trade does happen this offseason or in season. The first player on this list is a player that's been the subject of trade rumors for the past few months, and that is wide receiver Romeo Doss. We keep seeing it in the news, the rumors that the Packers could potentially trade away wide receiver Romeo Doss. Now, I think a lot of this is fueled by what happened last season and what also happened for the Packers this offseason. We're talking about the draft here, drafting Matthew Golden in the first round, then very soon after drafting yet another wide receiver in the 3rd round in Savion Williams. So then you kind of take a look at the Packers wide receiver room, and there's a lot of mouths to feed in that wide receiver room. Also, you take into effect that Christian Watson looks like he's ahead of schedule. We saw him in the Don Hudson Center warming up during OTAs and minicamp. And then last week, we saw an Instagram video of him actually running routes at almost full speed, and he looked really good. Don't want to get my hopes up for that, but Watson really does look ahead of schedule. So if the Green Bay Packers feel they're going to get Christian Watson back early, not only that, but have high expectations for Matthew Golden, Romeo Doss may become expendable for the Green Bay Packers. Another important note here in this situation is Romeo Doss is in the last year of his rookie contract. So the Packers like to set up position groups by drafting a few players a year or two before existing players' contract expires, this so they can have younger players, cheaper players, and they don't have to dish out a ton of money for certain position groups. The Packers have one of the cheapest wide receiver groups in the NFL in terms of money spent, and I think they want to keep it that way. Not saying Romeo Doss would command a ton of money on the open market. And when you take a look at 2024, not only did Romeo Doss get suspended for a week due to team conduct, basically skipping out on practice, but also endured multiple head injuries, multiple concussions. That's something that can linger. That's something that you have to worry about, not only as a player, but a football team that has that player on your roster. Can you count on that player? And then when you look at statistics, Romeo Doss was 3rd in total targets on this team behind Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed, and only 2 targets ahead of Tucker Kraft. And I think the Packers are really going to focus on getting the ball to Jaden Reed this season. Tay Wicks led the Packers in targets last year, so to me, he's not a trade candidate. I know some people either throw around Romeo Doss or Tay Wicks. Wicks has 2 years left on his deal. He led the team in targets last year. You see so much potential there, and that's not putting down Romeo Doss. I think he's a very good player and has a ton of potential, but right now he just kind of seems like the odd man out. And if we go through camp and Matthew Golden continues to impress like he did in minicamp and OTAs, which were non-padded practice, but when the pads come on and Matthew Golden starts to explode during camp, if that happens, I really think the Packers are going to start to field calls about Romeo Doss and potentially think about trading him away. Now, in terms of value, I don't see it being that much The Packers obviously spent a 4th-round pick on him 3 years ago. I personally see them probably getting a day 3 pick in return. Now, would they get the same 4th round back in investment? Probably not. I'm thinking more of a late 5th round, 6th round pick, something that, gets something for the player, which would be something, right? If we play out this season with Romeo Doss and he leaves in free agency, you could also probably get a compensatory pick. Maybe depends on the type of money he signs with another team, which totally depends on how he could potentially play this season. But if he's going to be the odd man out and take a backseat on targets to guys like Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, Tucker Kraft, he likely wouldn't be a high signing free agent for another team anyways, and might not even factor into the compensatory selections. And this is a trade that I think could either happen before the season, but also in the season, right? If the Packers don't feel as comfortable with their rookies just yet, Matthew Golden, Savion Williams, and they're not banking on Christian Watson returning early, then they're probably going to ride with Romeo Doss into this season. And that's, if I was a betting man, that's what I think they do. But I think an in-season trade is more of a likely thing here before the trade deadline, of course. If they start to see, on film what Matthew Golden's doing in the regular season, they get more insight on Christian Watson's potential return. We see Dontavian Wicks maybe fix his drop issue. At that rate, I think the Packers very well could trade Romeo Doss. So that's why he's first on my list, and that's also why he's been amidst many trade rumors this offseason so far. The second player on my list, flipping over to the defensive side of the football, and I talked about this in a couple videos the past couple of months, and that is Kingsley Igbar, our defensive end. Now, the Packers, similarly to wide receiver, drafted 2 edge players in this previous draft, where the year prior they didn't draft any. So the Packers clearly investing in this edge rushing room, which was a problem for the Packers this last season. Now, JJ Igbar saw the second most snaps at edge in 2024, and you might be looking at that and going, there's no way the Packers trade him. He saw the second most snaps at edge after they traded away Preston Smith. Well, that might be part of the problem, because the Packers' edge rush wasn't good last year. If you were to point to one thing on the Packers' defense last year that held them back, it was the inability to rush the passer consistently. So if Kingsley Igbar was on the field a ton and they couldn't rush the passer consistently, maybe that was part of the problem. So I don't really see that as a way to go, okay, they're not going to trade Kingsley Igbar. Now, I also think this highly relies on the development of Lucas Van Ness. Obviously, the Packers fired Jason Rebrovich, brought in DeMarcus Covington to be their new defensive line coach, and a lot lies on that. But Lucas Van Ness has already been getting first-team reps, pretty much all of them, during minicamp and OTAs, furthermore signaling that the Packers don't want to have Kingsley Igbar yet again be second highest in edge rushing snaps for this defense. And it also relies on what the rookies show in camp. We've yet to see anything from Colin Oliver. He's been injured during minicamp and OTAs. We saw some flash plays out of Barron Sorrell, given these are both practices without pads. It's hard to really analyze offensive and defensive line when the pads aren't on. We're really going to start to see that during training camp, where hopefully both Barron Sorrell and Colin Oliver can put some stuff on film to where then the Packers go, okay, we can trade away Kingsley Igbar. Like, if the Packers traded away Preston Smith in season last year, they 100% could trade away Kingsley Igbar. Now, I loved the pick coming out of that 5th round a few years ago, and he's given more than a typical 5th round pick has to the Green Bay Packers defense. But to me, he's a wildly inconsistent player. Some games you look at the film, you watch what he does, and you're blown away. And you're going, wow, this is an excellent player, especially for a 5th round draft pick. But other games, it's just horrible. It's abysmal. And that inconsistency just simply cannot fly for this Packers defense. So overall, I think this is a high possibility that the Packers could trade away Kingsley Igbar. And if no team's interested, they could even cut him, because Brenton Cox Jr. stepped up heavily to round out 2024, and in my opinion, he should get more snaps than Kingsley Igbar. Brenton Cox Jr., that guy has a ton of potential, and right now, Igbar is just the odd man out, and just like Romeo Doss, he's on the last year of his rookie deal at $3.4 million. So if the Packers not only don't feel like they give him too many snaps because they view Barron Sorrell higher, they view Brenton Cox Jr. higher, those are the 2 next in line after Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, they could also clear $3.4 million off their salary cap to use for upcoming deals such as Zach Tom, give Elton Jenkins more guaranteed money, so on and so forth. Now, I think similarly to Romeo Dobbs, it would be a day 3 pick, but for this one, I think it would be less value than Romeo Dobbs. I think it would definitely highest is a 6th round pick, conditional, maybe even just a 7th round pick. I think that's kind of the value you'd get back for JJ Igbar. You know, again, if a team's not interested, I could even see this being a cut candidate before the 53-man roster cut down if they really like what they see out of the development of Lucas Van Ness, and then someone like Baron Sorrell shows up in training camp and they go, yeah, okay, and Igbar is expendable. Last year's pass rush wasn't good enough, and he saw the second most snaps. So that's why I also have Kingsley Igbar as a trade away candidate for the Green Bay Packers. The last player on this list is someone I've been talking about more recently as being a potential trade away candidate for the Green Bay Packers, and that is left tackle Rasheed Walker. There's been a lot of noise about the Green Bay Packers offensive line as of late, with Zach Tom's mega extension on the horizon. We got the reports yesterday that he's looking for over $25 million. I fully believe the Packers will gladly pay that to Zach Tom on a 4-year deal. And there's also been a lot of moving parts at left tackle for the Packers. During OTAs and minicamp, we saw Jordan Morgan take some snaps at right guard, but then to end mandatory minicamp, he took first-team reps at left tackle. Now, Rasheed Walker was in the rehab group, so that probably was why he was taking all the first-team reps, but it's no secret that Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers view Jordan Morgan as a left tackle. He constantly talks about that there will be an open competition at left tackle between Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan. The Packers invested a high draft pick on Jordan Morgan, whereas they only invested a 7th round pick on Rasheed Walker. And don't get me wrong, he has been phenomenal for being a 7th round pick. And honestly, he shouldn't even have been a 7th round pick. I saw him more as a day 2, day 3 pick coming out of that draft, and he fell all the way to the 7th round, and the Packers were smart enough to take him. And he's overproduced based on his draft position. But the Packers can definitely upgrade at the position. And I think one of the biggest things here isn't necessarily the play of Rasheed Walker, where, yes, they can upgrade, but it's the potential money that's involved here, because Rasheed Walker, just like the first 2 players on this list, is also on the last year of his deal. As I mentioned before, the exact Tom extension is on the horizon at $25+ million annually. We also have Elton Jenkins' situation. He wants more guarantees. That could potentially have the Packers dishing out more money. And Rasheed Walker being on the last year of his deal. You take a look at this past free agency and what Dan Moore got to go sign with the Tennessee Titans at $20.5 million per year. Rasheed Walker is a better left tackle than Dan Moore, and I don't even think it's that close. So Rasheed Walker could also easily command over $22 million per year. Are the Green Bay Packers really going to pay Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker in the same offseason/season, totaling over $47 million per year for both your tackles when you just drafted one in the first round that's on a cheap contract for the next 2 to 3 years, depending on if you accept the 5th-year option? It just doesn't seem like a move that's gonna happen for the Packers. So right now, I think he's very low on the priority list in terms of offensive line contracts. I think Zach Tom is number 1. Number 2 is Elton Jenkins. And number 3 could even maybe be someone like Sean Ryan that they want to keep around on the roster that might be our starting right guard to enter this season. Rasheed Walker, in my opinion, is very low on the priority list in terms of contract situation. And for that reason, the Packers might just want to get this done in terms of getting compensation back for Rasheed Walker. Now, if they go through this season and they want to keep Rasheed Walker on the roster, which is certainly a possibility. I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen or this is 100% a trade that should happen. Having good quality depth offensive linemen is a great thing in the NFL. But if they want to get compensation back now, they could do that. Now, if he plays through the entire season and they just let him do that and they go to Jordan Morgan next year, Rasheed Walker likely signs a $22 million deal with some left tackle needy team next free agency, and the Packers most likely get a high compensatory pick, a 3rd round pick for that anyways. So if a team wants to get Rasheed Walker early this year, if they're going to pay him that money anyways, a team that really needs a left tackle right now, I could totally see the phone ringing in Brian Gutekunst's office, and then it just comes down to the price. If a team offers a 2nd or 3rd round pick, that's where I really think Gutekunst might question and go, hey, is this worth it? And this really heavily relies on, is Jordan Morgan ready at full-time left tackle? He had some injury concerns last year, didn't even finish out his full rookie season. So if you are fully comfortable with Jordan Morgan going to left tackle and starting there all season, then yes, Rasheed Walker is expendable. But if you're not ready for that, if you don't think Jordan Morgan's ready, then you should probably just keep Rasheed Walker on the roster for 2025, let him walk in next year's free agency, pick up a compensatory selection as well. So those are my 3 potential trade-away candidates for the Green Bay Packers this 2025 offseason, then going into the 2025 season. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Which one out of these 3 do you see the most likely to be traded by the Green Bay Packers? Or if not one of these 3, let me know who else on the roster you think could be traded down in the comments below. Really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. If you could leave a like down below, supports the channel a ton. I'll catch you on the next one, and as always, go Pack Go.